Hey, this is Pastor Sue at Churches United. I wanted to just spend a little bit of time talking about these times in which we find ourselves and offer up a prayer for all of us together as we continue to move forward. I was thinking earlier today, and then particularly when one of our board members quoted it at our board meeting earlier, these verses from Romans 5. For we know, Paul writes, that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope, and hope does not disappoint, because God's love has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit that has been given to us. So this past week or so, as we've seen events play out, first the tragic death of George Floyd, the tragic killing of that gentleman, that is certainly suffering. And we know that our brothers and sisters in communities of color, and in particularly in the African American community, have suffered greatly, and that has indeed produced endurance. Hopefully, there is hope even in this time. I am uncomfortably aware, day by day, as we move through this period of time, of my own privilege. I consider myself to be a pretty successful human being, and I recognize that a great deal of that success has nothing to do with decisions that I've made or choices that I have made. I was born into a culture of privilege, and it's uncomfortable for me to acknowledge that privilege, but it needs to happen. I'm also aware that many of our brothers and sisters in this nation were born into a culture not of privilege, but one in which there's been poverty and homelessness, incarceration, and negative health outcomes at rates that far outstrip the percentages in terms of our demographic. I also recognize that nothing is as simple as it may seem at face value. So it's all too easy to reduce this conversation to questions of white privilege or communities of color and their suffering. I think it's also all too easy to reduce this into conversations that paint those in law enforcement with all the same brush, or paint those in other communities all with the same brush. It's helpful for me, and I hope it's helpful for you, to acknowledge that each of us are the experts in our own experience and our own story. No one knows our own story or our own experience with the intimacy and the authority that each of us do. I'm trying, and have for some time, to enter into conversations with others with a sense of humility, and to respect that our brothers and sisters who struggle with poverty and homelessness and inequity are the experts of their own experience. I want to encourage us all, as we work together for healing and wholeness and equity, that we respect that others are experts in their own experience, and that we listen to what they have to say. I know from my position here at Churches United that even though persons of color or Indigenous persons make up about 11% of the total population of Fargo-Moorhead, persons of color and Indigenous persons make up 65 to 70% of the folks who seek shelter through the homeless service sector, and a similar percentage of those who seek assistance at food pantries and who need assistance for stable housing. We need to engage around this inequity and to listen carefully and to work together, all of us together, to find hope and new beginnings and a true sense of fairness and respect for the worth of each other. I would ask today that you would join in the work of Churches United for the Homeless, because we are engaged in this work. And also, I hope that you will join me in prayer. God and Father of us all, give us perseverance, endurance. Give us hope. Open our eyes and ears and hearts to the struggles of our neighbors. Help us to recognize that we are, each of us, experts in our own experience, and that our experiences are true. Support those who are struggling. Support those who are striving to do good work in protecting and serving our communities. Give us a spirit of humility, but take away our fear. Help us to see your face in the face of our neighbor, especially our neighbors who may look and act and speak differently from ourselves. Help us to respect and to truly love one another. All of this we ask in your holy name. Amen.